Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Talk the Talk, RTR-FM's weekly show about linguistics, the science of language. For the next hour, we're going to be bringing you language news, language arts, and some great music. Maybe we'll even hear from you. My name's Daniel Migdalia. I'm here with Ben Ainsley.
Good morning.
And Kylie Sturgis.
G'day, everyone.
On this episode, we are talking about Shakespeare. Away from the glare of the footlights, a project is underway to translate all the Bard's works into present-day English. How is it going? What's staying, and what's going to be out? We're talking to the writers on this episode of Talk the Talk.
New digs.
Wow, what is this place?
It's purple.
Not our characteristic red.
Do you reckon they coloured it purple because of the Fremantle Dockers? I reckon they did.
I think they just said,
it's not
okay,
on
there's
brand
a
with,
colour.
it's not on brand with Murdoch because Murdoch's colour is red.
It's a nice eggplanty colour. I don't think it's really...
Is
it maroon?
Or
maroon?
We need to acknowledge to the people who can't watch on our video currently, we are in a new place.
Yeah, we're at Murdoch University. The very kind people here have allowed us to use their studios because RTR-FM, one of RTR-FM's studios, is currently out of order.
Out of commission. Like a battleship.
Like a battleship.
From time to time, it needs to go into dry dock and have itself worked on, which is, of course, understandable.
Scrape off all those barnacles.
Exactly. And while that's happening, we needed to find a fresh battleship to ride vaingloriously into battle. And so here we are.
Well, thanks to the good people at Murdoch Uni for letting us borrow their studios for this episode.
Now, always happy to talk about Shakespeare, but we've got something to do before we get to that, which is find out what's been going on in the world of linguistics in the week gone past.
Claire on Twitter sent me a message, have you seen this? And I had not.
Thank you, Claire.
New South Wales introduces nation's first laws to recognize and revive Indigenous languages. How about that for a headline?
I have also not seen this.
Now, I want to just focus on two parts. Recognize, that's lovely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm especially interested in the second word, revive.
Yeah, so that sounds like a doing word, doesn't it?
Sure does.
It's got agency.
Sounds like they've got a plan. So this is what's happened. The Upper House in New South Wales has decided to pass a bill to recognize and revive Indigenous or Australian or Aboriginal languages. It's the nation's first.
Good job, New South Wales. Well done.
In fact, there's even 35 languages that are going to be examined and have the opportunity to be revived. There was hundreds of people who turned up outside Parliament House in order to usher in this historic piece of legislation. Apparently, they're going to be appointing an independent panel of Indigenous language experts and even have a new language centre in order to make sure it's all formalised and structured.
This is really exciting. Let me just read to you the wording of the bill. At least this was a draft bill. To recognize that language is intrinsic to the culture and identity of Aboriginal people and to the intangible cultural heritage of all the people of New South Wales.
Yeah, that's not equivocal, is it?
Part 2, to recognize the rights of Aboriginal people and communities to learn and maintain Aboriginal languages.
Cool. That seems like a thing of like, that's nice to have on a law, but is it also like, it seems like the law don't kill people, right? Like it seems like a pretty like, let's just assume that's a thing.
Well, it gets even better. Part 3, to require the minister to prepare a strategic plan for the survival and revival of Aboriginal languages.
Dang!
No,
that is like
strategic.
a mic drop moment.
Yeah.
Gets even better. Among the subheadings, to provide funding for community language initiatives.
Boom.
To foster the use and appreciation of Aboriginal languages.
Boom, boom.
And finally, to establish the Centre for Aboriginal Languages of New South Wales to assist the minister in achieving a focused, coordinated and sustained effort, in the revival, maintenance, development and sustainability of Aboriginal languages.
Boom, boom, boom. Wow,
Excellent.
that is really, really, like, because I thought at first, I was like, they seem to not be like hedging at all here. That's pretty cool. But then at the end, they were just like, oh, you think it was good before? Check this business out. And then they just sustained.
Yeah.
Well, you never see language like that.
No.
That's really impressive.
It really hasn't happened. I mean, this is a huge change. Until the 1970s, in New South Wales, speaking Aboriginal languages was either discouraged or just plain banned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay.
I liked one of the points that was raised during the opportunity to discuss this in Parliament. Apparently, Barikinji man Murray Butcher spoke in language and urged Parliament not to try and control the preservation of Indigenous languages. And here's a quote from him: "Let's do something right and help us save our languages, put the power back in our people to save our languages and give us the power to control our destiny." Because as they admit, it's always been a grassroots effort. If you've got governance, if you've got missions, if you've got outreach efforts, trying to stop people from speaking the language, obviously it's going to be the grassroots people who are going to be driving it in order to make it happen. So you've got to recognise their power as well and help facilitate them, because they've been doing it all along.
It's got to be driven by the speakers. If they aren't, for some reason, interested in reviving a language, then that is their call. And we've got to.
That's a really interesting point to make.
Got to respect that. It's not our call. It's not. It's not the people that look like us. I think this is a step in the right direction.
I think we need to slow clap New South Wales.
In other news, we know that language changes over time, and in the long...
Wait. What? I've learned nothing from this show.
And in the long term, all the elements of language can change, both the lexicon, which is the vocabulary of the words, and also the grammar, which is kind of like the rules for putting the words together.
Yep.
We can go from red house to house red in the very long term.
Sure.
There's a new study from Simon Greenhill of the Max Planck Institute for the Science of Human History and team. They've examined how languages change. They looked at the grammar and the lexicon for over 80 Austronesian languages. Take a guess. Which would change faster? The lexicon, the vocabulary, the words, or the grammar of a language?
I go lexicon. I reckon lexicon can change better.
I'm thinking the opposite. I'm thinking grammar is going to be more flexible.
Why?
Just to be
The audience, as we figured out at Camp Doogs, the audience does hate me. So I think Kylie might
just
be right.
out of sheer popularity. I'm probably wrong, but yeah, what's the answer?
Okay, well, the team found, very surprisingly, that grammar changes faster.
Oh, I got it. God damn it.
They found that the grammar changed quickly when there were situations of language contact.
Okay, yep.
Whereas the lexicon changed more as new languages were formed.
So, like, when one language slowly morphs into another language, not from contact or pressure from secondary languages, then grammar is sticky. But when two languages come together and are sort of like cross-pollinating, it's the grammar that changes faster.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Wow.
That's a really unexpected result. I would have guessed what Ben said.
I guessed what the linguist guessed.
But
I mean, we both lost. But
But
we were wrong together.
you're on the same team.
When two languages get together, there's often a burst of contact-induced language in the grammar, but the vocabulary stays right where it is. And maybe that's because those other people come over here, and we're not always aware of the grammar that we use, but we know our words, and we say, well, those are my words. I'm not going to use your words. I'm going to use my words.
Oh, true. That's a really salient point, because very few people know grammar until they sit down and learn a second language, right? Yeah. So I guess that makes sense.
I guess I just see it all the time, that people start playing loose and fast with the grammatical structures, and as long as we understand each other, that's fine.
It's because linguistics, you guys.
Because linguistics.
Yeah.
Shall we meditate on a track?
Yes, let's listen to Scalp Hunter, There Will Be Change on RTR-FM 92.1. There is a language warning for this track, but if you'd like to get in touch with us, why don't you do so? 9260-9210 or talkthetalk@rtrfm.com.au.
We are available on the Face Space via our wonderful Facebook page, and you can also tweet at us at TalkRTR. This week on Talk the Talk, our main topic of discussion, we're going back to something we've spoken about before, Shakespeare, and a contemporization of Shakespeare, and the pitchforks and torches that people seem to want to hold when you bring up this idea. It's literally like, burn them all!
Some people are actually really excited about this project.
I'm very excited about this project because
really
I'm
excited.
fun and interesting, but there is boring, curmudgeonly old people who are like, Shakespeare is perfect in time and it cannot be changed by anything or anyone.
Story time for people who don't know. A couple of years ago, I found out that the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, huge organization promoting Shakespeare, they had commissioned playwrights and dramaturges to translate all 39 of the Shakespeare plays that we know of into present-day English. And we talked to Migdalia Cruz and Taylor Mack, and we also talked to the festival director, Louis Douthit. That was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it.
I had a whale of a time.
A little while ago, I thought, I wonder what's going on with that project, because it's been a while, about a year and a half, and it's a 3-year project. So I thought, wonder if I should get back in touch with them and see how it's going.
We've opened up the big compendium, the complete works of Shakespeare. We've taken our little Talk the Talk bookmark out of there, and we're checking in.
Yeah, except I was lucky, because when I got in touch with the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, I found out that they were just about to have an enormous wingding where they brought lots and lots of the playwrights, dramaturges, and everyone together to talk about how it was going. So I was able to sort of insert myself in there and talk to a whole bunch of people.
Oh, brilliant.
Daniel Midgley with a intellectual Jimmy bar just kind of like dunk.
So here are the people that I was able to talk to. I got to talk to the team that's doing Two Gentlemen of Verona. It's Amelia Roper and Kate McConnell. Amelia is an Australian playwright, but she's working in the States.
Great.
Oh, how wonderful.
I got to talk to Yvette Nolan, who is writing Henry IV, Part 1. And I also got to talk once again to Migdalia Cruz and Ishia Bennison, their Team Macbeth.
Oh, sink your teeth into that one.
So I asked these writers if they could tell me if there were any bits of translation that were difficult or how it looked before and after. Here's Amelia and Kate from The Two Gentlemen of Verona.
Yeah, sure. Look, even the first sort of few lines of the play, maybe Kate can do the before and I'll do the after.
Sure. So it starts with Valentine saying, "Cease to persuade my loving Proteus, home-keeping youth have ever homely wits."
Okay, that's tough.
Yeah. So you want to do just the translation of those two?
Oh, yeah, these two, and maybe I'll do the next two, because in my head they're connected.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not. Oh, yeah, so stop protesting, my loving Proteus. Yokel kids have ever vocal wits. Were it not your sticky love keeps you stuck here, I would demand you join me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love that Amelia did, the sort of home-keeping youth have ever homely wits it's parsable. We can get it, but it's not going to kind of hit your brain super easily, especially because it's the second line in a play, right? And your brain hasn't adjusted to the rhythm and the text of Shakespeare yet. That always takes a little while. So the fact that she kept the rhythm and did a lovely little kind of rhyming play there with yokel kids have ever vocal wits. When I saw that, I was like, yes, so good.
That was good.
I love the moment after Percy dies in Henry, and he says, and Hal says, "And food for worms, dear Percy," right? And then he says, "When that this body did contain a spirit, a kingdom for it was too small a bound. But now 2 paces of the vilest earth is room enough. This earth that bears thee dead bears not alive so stout a gentleman." And I was like, yeah, I understand what that means, but my translation is, "When this bold body did contain a spirit, a kingdom was too small a realm for it. But now 2 paces of the vilest earth is room enough. This earth that bears you dead bears no man now alive as valiant."
Wow.
So I didn't lose the meter, I didn't lose the intention, I gave the action, but I also took away, I took away the need to translate. Because it feels to me now that everyone can just follow. And for me, because I love this moment so much, that's great. Like to be able to give that kind of clarity around this moment and not have the audience go, wait a second, that's not what Shakespeare said. Like that's a win for me. When the audience is just like, yeah, and they don't know whether that's me or Will or what combination.
Here we go. "Compel these page soldiers, no sooner justice had with valor armed, compel these skipping kerns to trust their heels, but the Norwegian lord, surveying vantage with furbished arms and new supplies of men, began a fresh assault." And that became,
"Compelled these page soldiers to turn their heels, but Sweno, the Norwegian king, sensing advantage with replenished weapons and new supplies of men, began a fresh assault." So we understood that, but we didn't understand because we don't know what kerns and we don't know what those archaic words we don't use today. So that sort of thing.
And also naming the Norwegian lord was important, because he's named later, and it's like, who's Swino?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, he was the Norwegian guy mentioned in the first act. So making sure that all of those relationships were clear was an important thing to change, but also making sure that there aren't words in there that are just like, we don't have that word anymore.
Yeah.
So what does it mean, and how do you find that equivalent? And mercenaries had too many syllables, so it became paid soldiers.
Very nice. You mentioned that there are things that you decide to take on, and there are things you decide to leave alone. I confess that I am rather surprised that you decided to leave a certain thing alone, and that's the these and thous, because when I first heard of this project, that was the one thing that I thought was going to be the first to go. What's going on there?
Well, I think for me, it's each play is going to make their own decision about that. For me, I felt like I didn't want to change anything that was obviously clear. And I didn't want to change it for people who are stupid. I didn't want to start thinking.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I didn't mean it that way. But I mean, I didn't want to assume that the audience has like a shortened brainstem or something. It's like we understand what thee means. We understand what thou means. And because it's archaic language does not mean that it isn't present. I also wanted to leave it in the case of this play, and I think in all of his plays, the thee and the thous are reserved for personal, right?
Yes.
For the personal address.
Yes.
We don't have that address anymore.
Yes.
So it's important when he made the choice, because he has yous in his play too, not just these and thous. So the idea that the thee and thou is there had a purpose, and I didn't want to erase the purpose if it was already clear.
That was Migdalia, Cruz, and Ishia Bennison of the Play On Project, translating Shakespeare.
I got to say, I don't know about you guys, but the thing that really struck me was how not contemporized most of it was to my ears. It was still very high register.
Well, one of the things about the project is that was one of the goals. There were 4 sort of briefs. Do no harm. Don't fix everything. Go line by line. No switching things around. Keep it to the time when it was written. Don't transfer it to 1939 Berlin.
Right.
And keep Shakespeare's heightened language. Keep the meter, the rhyme, the metaphors, and all that.
Oh, that's a beautiful challenge.
A tough one, though, because obviously all of the Puritans are just like, well, you fail at the first one because you're touching the text, so you're doing harm. But, I mean, especially the first example, I just found to be, I mean, they maintained meter. That's bananas.
And made it sound normal.
Yeah.
What a tough translation task.
And then, so we're all like, wow, that's really impressive. In the, 35-second text that you just quoted, they did an entire Shakespeare play. 5 acts, bros.
And that includes the stuff that's usually dropped. They didn't drop anything.
Yeah.
Man, I can't believe that the these and thous didn't get transferred. What do you think of her reasons?
So I condone her reasons, right? Like the idea, as I understand it, from what they're challenging themselves, what the Oregon Shakespeare Festival is setting out to do is to render the texts decipherable to a reasonably well-educated contemporary audience, right?
The kind of people who are going to be turning up to a Shakespeare play after all. I mean, many of us have gone, I've enjoyed Shakespeare plays, but I've looked around me and seen the line of school kids who are sitting there either with pens or with their arms folded for the entire production with a huge scowl on their face.
Yeah.
And sometimes us enthusiasts are difficult to find.
I think they're presuming a PBS audience or an ABC audience, right?
I guess so.
People who want to go to a festival of Shakespeare.
And so I guess I agree with her. I think that audience doesn't need the and thou translated. Not to make sense, not to understand and follow along and all that kind of stuff. Why are you so aghast? Why were you like, it will be these and thous first and everything will follow?
Kylie, we've been talking about ways of translating T and V pronouns like, tu and usted or tu and vous, and just leaving them has been one of the options.
Yeah.
The reason why I thought this was a weird way to go was just that, well, if this is a translation into thoroughly modern English, well, thee and thou, not thoroughly modern. Not at all.
No, that's true. But they're also not thoroughly ancient right? They're not fossils.
There are still people that use the and thou. Richard Nixon's mother was a Quaker, called him thou.
Yeah, right. Well, there you go. I mean, that's still a while ago now.
It is.
Nixon is old. But more the idea that Kern doesn't make any sense, right? The average, very well-educated punter, unless they're a heavy Shakespeare nerd, is not going to know what Kern means.
Yeah.
Right? But we do know what the and thou means.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the and thou is transparent in a way that Kern isn't. We'll have more to chat with our writers and dramaturges, but maybe we should take a track.
I think so. I think we need to split up this gargantuan effort. 5 acts is a lot.
Since we've been talking about Macbeth and we're going to talk about the witches, let's listen to Ladytron off of their album Witching Hour with Destroy Everything You Touch on RTR-FM 92.1.
We are halfway through our re-investigation of how the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, a titan in the Shakespeare world, I think we can comfortably say, is going in their 3-year sojourn to turn all, and I mean all, of Shakespeare's works, all 5 acts from all of the plays, into contemporary, understandable language.
I'm very jealous. There's a whole bunch of people all gathered together and been allocated plays, and they've been set the task, and the task is nearly finished, as we've been discovering.
Different people are at different parts of the process, but what I wanted to get a feel for was what was the reaction? Let's hear first from Amelia Roper and Kate McConnell, who've been working on The Two Gentlemen of Verona.
There's been a larger conversation in the community about people that are really for it and people that are really against it. I've sort of stayed out of that a little bit because for me, art is art, and I'm an artist and I'm working on the art. And in a way, I don't even buy into the premise that I need to defend it. That film versions, TV versions, directors every day spend a lot of time with this text, adapt this text in various different ways, make decisions about it. We're all making art. We're not burning books. They're still there. You can have them. So I kind of feel like I'm not even gonna go into it.
I saw when the announcements first came out, it was all over my Facebook page and Twitter and everything else, and people were having very strong opinions about it. And it was like, I don't even need to have this discussion because it's like, it's not a zero-sum game, guys. Like, those words are still there. And we're creating a new thing with different words over here. And it doesn't affect that one, We were talking about, I think the impression is that, you're creating this lesser thing that, this knockoff that then theater companies are going to want to do that instead of doing the hard work and doing the original Shakespeare. And, the kind of first response to that is, well, these are new texts, so they'd have to pay royalties. So a lot of theater companies aren't going to want to do them.
Good point.
But also the idea that people today, living today, that we can't possibly be as good as or contribute to people living in the past is something I think it's a very human feeling, and it's one of the kind of more dangerous ideas around nostalgia. And I think it speaks more to people feeling like they're not good enough, and I'm not going to buy into that. I can't be an artist every day and believe I'm not good enough. I just need to know that I am. Mm-hmm.
I have sometimes felt like this is one of the most dangerous ideas that we have today. The idea that people back in the past knew how to do stuff better, and if it's old, then it's really good, and we don't know how to do stuff now. That idea just bugs me because it means that really old, bad ideas get kept.
Well, yeah, and the fact that we live in a culture now where it's absolutely not perfect, but there is a much more diverse range of people allowed to say what they think now and allowed to lead when that comes to people of color, women. Like, diversity now is a conversation.
Yeah, which is, I think, one of the great things of the project, that I know that they made a point of making sure that it was evenly split between men and women playwrights, and at least 50% people of color.
Yep.
So, like, actually bringing those voices into conversation with Shakespeare in a really direct and cool and interesting way.
Yeah.
The purists, yes, they always say, I'm not a purist, but, and then they sort of attack you. They have been articulating sort of their discomfort with it. But again, as someone who understands that language is power, I don't need you to hold language over me, right? So I'm kind of democratizing Shakespeare so that everybody now can be inside it and be listening to these stories about power and about class and about war and about all of these things that we actually are really, really grappling with as a society right now.
Well, when we first announced, there was quite a lot of conversation around. There were a lot of, I think, really knee-jerk reactions from folks who potentially didn't actually understand what we were doing. There was a lot of misunderstanding out the gate. I think that part of that is because I think we live in a time where a lot of times people read headlines and not much else. And so, when the headlines are running like Oregon Shakespeare Festival updating Shakespeare or something like that, it's people are like, what? But, I think that it was obviously a mix, right? It was a lot of people who had very knee-jerk reactions. And then a lot of people who had really thoughtful, nuanced critiques or commentary about what it was we were wanting to do. And then also a lot of people who were like, yeah, awesome. Get in there. Let's do this. What an exciting idea. And I think even back then, our position was two things. One was how exciting to have all this conversation around Shakespeare. And two, let us at least do the work before you judge it, because that was a fascinating component of this, is that it was we were receiving criticism for an idea rather than an actual end product. So that was kind of fascinating. But honestly, we've all of that has very much kind of calmed down. We haven't. We occasionally something will pop up again, but there was a lot of in the moment reaction. And, we kind of figure there's a few other things for everyone to be mad about in the world these days. And so we're kind of flying under the radar at this point.
Well, I think for me, it was about feeling entitled to that language. Like saying that because I pursued this translation as if I was writing a play, the way I write my own plays. So that meant I did research that wasn't just about looking up words in a dictionary. I actually went to the Isle of Iona and I visited Macbeth's grave. And I wanted to feel like I'm walking in the same shoes. And what would that mean?
I'm curious about this idea of feeling entitled to Shakespeare. What's behind that?
What's behind that? Years of colonial thought?
Yes.
Colonialized thought?
And terrible snobbery.
And being a woman?
Yes, and appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And being a woman of color?
Yes.
A dramaturg of color? Being a playwright and an actress?
Yeah.
Not who haven't been given a stamp of approval as masters of our art, although in our own minds we are definitely masters.
Certainly.
We're lovely masters.
Yeah.
But wanting to feel that you're doing a just job, but also that you're doing it in a respectful way.
Migdalia, Cruz, and Ishia Bennison, as well as Amelia Roper, Kate McConnell, Yvette Nolan, and the Assistant Director of Play On, Taylor Bailey.
I have never been so jealous in my life. That sounds like so much fun what they do. I know there's probably purists out there going, how dare they, but oh, what a wonderful opportunity for them all.
My take is this. Everyone who's having a big old whinge about stuff getting changed, well, okay, you better not have ever liked 10 Things I Hate About You or The Lion King or literally a bajillion things directly based on Shakespeare's work.
Good old Baz Luhrmann and his Romeo plus Juliet, which is taught absolutely everywhere. And
Well, this project isn't over. It's still running for another year and a half, and I would hope that I can get together with some of the writers and dramaturgs to see how they feel about it at the end of it.
You have to imagine sometime in the next decade, a couple of these shows are going to tour Australia. You have to.
Big time.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Now, this was only part of a huge and wide-ranging interview with our subjects. If you are on Patreon, you can hear the whole thing, so check our Patreon page for that.
Otherwise, I think it's time for us to take a little track and compose ourselves before we yummy down on Word of the Week.
Let's listen to something from the Dunyan album called Höksan, which means the witch.
Oh.
This is Perivanusidjon on RTR FM 92.1.
And as we sit in our new environs, besmirched in the stinking fetid odour of students learning things, we must ourselves learn a thing. We must learn the word of the week.
Students aren't as stinky as you, I'll put it that way.
As opposed to RTR, where nobody ever learns anything.
Indeed. Love you, RTR. Hashtag get better soon.
For these words of the week, I found a lot of words that relate to relationships and how to be terrible at them. So,
how to be terrible at relationships? Are we talking capital R relationships, like romantic relationships, or are we talking about like Daniel, you and I have a relationship? Are we talking about those sorts as well?
I think we're talking about the dating scene.
Okay.
We know about fubbing.
Fubbing is basically when you have been chatting with someone and then one of the two parties just goes Bidoo.
No, you're describing ghosting.
Oh, okay.
Which is
Sorry, I thought it was the
different.
same. Oh, sorry.
Fubbing is when you snub someone by pretending to talk on your phone. It's a phone snub.
I see. It's dangerous. It's a gamble.
It is.
Because the phone can ring.
That's true.
This is true, but nobody ever does phone each other, so you're pretty safe. Ghosting is pretty much related to haunting. Anyone?
Haunting?
Yeah.
Is haunting anything like stalking?
Haunting is a bit like stalking, actually, yes. What happens is you ghost someone, and then you just keep popping up on social media, following them and liking their stuff.
Oh, that is weird.
Isn't it odd?
I like that, though. I like that word exists. That's fun.
Well, you can use it. You can also use a similar word for the same exact thing. Some people call it submarining, sort of resurfacing, or sometimes zombieing.
I like haunting because it just ties directly into ghosting.
It's the
wonderful.
creepiness, right?
Yeah.
And the submarine, I don't know, it just doesn't have anything to do with the theme.
No.
Yeah. All right, can you guess what this one is? Cushioning.
Now, all of this is relating to dating and stuff, right?
All of these are things that you might see or you might have done to someone.
Cushioning. Is that when you break up with someone but you make a bunch of excuses to make it? It's not you. It's me. It really is me.
I was going to say something similar. Like you try and be as good a person as you can when you say to someone, I don't like you.
You are both very kind, but you haven't quite captured the essence of cushioning.
Okay,
It's
lay it
not-
on us.
It's not something like, okay, we're going to have to break up, Ben, but my twin sister's really into you, so, you know. So it's kind of, this is good.
Cushioning is where you're dating somebody, but on the side, you've got a number of flirty friends, so that when that person inevitably dumps you, you won't feel so bad.
Interesting. I like that. Like a buffer, like a relationship buffer.
Yes, exactly. You've got several cushions to land on.
You dry your tears quite quickly because, let's face it, there's someone else on the horizon.
I want to be fairly clear, and this is super ironic coming from someone like me. Cushioning is definitely not a healthy thing to engage in.
Probably not.
No.
What happens if all your cushions get together and then decide to smother you for essentially leading you all on?
How about this one? Take a guess. What is stashing?
Stashing. Ooh, is stashing where you keep things that you need at sexy liaisons' houses?
Or is it
stashing a toothbrush in the cupboard and that sort of thing?
It's sort of slow infiltration of their home space. Or is it like, an Elton John thing, part-time love, where you're sort of you got a lover stashed over there and another one over there, and you're not really cushioning, you've just got them all over the place.
Like many different pillows to lay your head in the various ports in the world.
And they're not exactly cushioning because it's not about your emotional support in case you break up with them, but you got lots of
geographical options.
Geographical options.
Okay, well, you're both doing pretty well. You've got the sense of hiding, but stashing is when you've got someone that you're dating, you know it's not a permanent thing, so you kind of conceal them from your family and friends.
Oh, interesting,
yes.
interesting.
Again, a terrible thing to do. If you're into them, be into them. If you're not, then don't be.
If you're stashing someone,
Yeah.
it's fine if they're also stashing you. Like if you've made an agreement of like, look, I don't think that you and I are going to go like meaningful places, but I'm enjoying this. And the other person goes, oh, that's great news because like I definitely don't see a future with you, but I'm not bored yet.
You always have this one restaurant that you never bring anybody else to, but the two of you always meet there, and you always have a certain place that you'd never dream of going, but you go there with them because you know you're never going to meet anybody else.
When stash meets co-stash.
When yeah, exactly. When the Montague and the Capulet, who don't want to be together forever, are just kind of like, oh yeah,
Cool.
Let's go ice skating because
like
the
stashing, that's
Montagues
fun.
and the Capulets do not ice skate. Yeah.
What is benching?
Oh, when you've been fostering a little bit of a relationship, but you sort of go, you know what, I'm a little bit cool on you, and you put them on the bench, kind of like a sports team.
Or you bench yourself. You say, okay, I'm just getting too wild in my life. I'm gonna bench myself.
Self-benching.
Take a break and
like
watch
it.
the game play out in front of me and maybe not be as
If it's
active for a while.
Kylie's thing, I probably could have done with benching myself quite a few times in my life.
Take a chill pill, yeah.
Well, Ben, you're a little bit closer.
Yay.
Ah.
I mean, boo. I liked Kylie's more.
Let's rework these words.
Jason Chen, a writer for New York Magazine, says that this is what happens when you're in that flirty stage, texting back and forth, but they are a little bit slippery when it comes to actually getting together. It's not very nice. You shouldn't bench someone just as a way of keeping them around and throwing them enough,
Giving them crumbs to kind of keep them sniffing. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've seen that happen.
Which takes us to the last one, which is breadcrumbing.
Oh, well, I think that one's self-evident, isn't it?
Yep, you just give them enough to keep them going.
Oh, here, have a crumb.
Bit of random reinforcement. You never know when someone's going to go, yes? Oh, they said yes. And then you're waiting, 3 months, 5 months, or one day. You never know when they'll say, yeah, hi, I'm here.
Oh, and if you know anything about behavioral psychology, that random reinforcement schedule is the toughest one to break.
Painful. I know, that's why I use it on my cats all the time in order to lure them into the house. I say, if you come in, you might get food. And they'll go, oh, yes. And I go, yes, today, no food.
Every once in a while it works.
Every once in a while, I always give them the food and they go, oh. So
You're
I always
a
know.
monster.
I know,
You're
but
a
it works.
monster.
Me and Pavlov, ding.
I am so glad to be out of the dating scene. Can I just say? There are so many ways to be awful. So let's give some advice. I don't feel qualified to give anyone any dating advice, but I wish that people wouldn't suck.
Look, do you know what?
Or suck
I know
in the
it's
right way, maybe.
incredibly hard to do in contemporary society, but my thing recently has been like, maybe just don't lie. Right? And I feel like a lie of omission is still a lie. Right? So that takes care of ghosting. Just if you're not into someone, and this I'm going to go ahead and swing in the direction of fellas a little bit more than the ladies.
All right.
If you're not into someone, just fess up. It's not hard. It sucks in the moment, and no one wants to be the person who rejects someone. This is for boys and girls, I think. Like, everyone doesn't like doing that. But if you're not into someone, just tell the truth. Just be like, look, I'm really sorry. I'm just not that into you. Simple as that.
Tough at first, but easier in the long term.
Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid.
You got to rip that sucker off.
Anyone who doesn't rip off Band-Aids is silly.
Well,
I don't like ripping off Band-Aids. Oh,
That's because you're silly. You like to piecemeal, just like, excruciating.
Maybe I should bench myself, in the way that we interpret. I'm just going to sit here and watch the game play out.
as
Sorry.
always, use your words.
Well, this has been a very instructive word of the week. Thank you, Daniel.
You are welcome.
Kylie and I need to skedaddle, but if you've heard anything in today's show that you absolutely must run past our illustrious linguist, Daniel Migdalia, please get in touch. 9260-9210 is how you can give us a call, or you can email us, talkthetalk@rtrfm.com.au.
Don't forget, you can always hit us up on social media. We've got an amazing community on Facebook, and we're on Twitter as well, Talk RTR. Don't forget to check out our Patreon page and all the extras that we have as well on our website, talkthetalkpodcast.com.
But now let's hear from Mount Mountain with Ghosts on RTR FM 92.1. You're here in the closing minutes of Talk the Talk with me, Daniel. We've been having a great time discussing Shakespeare and things. Let's see. Timothy on Facebook says, I always use the term keeping them in a holding pattern for the cushioning scenario. Kind of an airplane metaphor. That's interesting. And they do have cushions on planes, so there's the tie-in. You scalawag, Timothy, you. Philip phoned in with a rather provocative question, I think. And the question was, what is the attraction to Shakespeare? Now, before you scream, what? Remember that there are a lot of people who Shakespeare misses. Ben, for example, mentioned that, he is able to recognize Shakespeare's greatness without really enjoying it that much or wanting to partake in it very much. I was thinking about my own past, and while I do enjoy Shakespeare, I can't say that I seek it out. And yet I do enjoy it. Philip says it's good, for its day, but it was maybe a little bit melodramatic, maybe a little bit overdone. We've got a lot of good things now, we've got a lot of good storytellers these days. So, is it really all that? My feels say that when Shakespeare works for me, it gives me sort of a conduit into the past. I can see that people 400 years ago felt the same things, felt love, felt anger, felt desire, felt revenge, in the same way that we do now. And let's be fair, some of these stories are really ripping. I can't say that that's what Shakespeare intended. He didn't intend for his work to be a time machine. It was intended to be current at the time it was made. But that's maybe part of it. What do you think? I've created a Facebook thread about this, and I would love to hear your responses. In fact, maybe we can even get back to this and see what you have to say. Paul from Brisbane says on Facebook, I was listening to your 2016 Word of the Year show recently where you discussed gender and pronouns. Here's the question. If you say, Bill said to Susie that she thought he was late, then everything works. They're marked for gender. You know that she refers to Susie and he refers to Bill. But if you use an invented pronoun like Bill said to Susie that Z thought Z was late, then it's not intelligible and it requires some other system for resolving the meaning. And by the way, we could say the same thing about singular they. My question is this: how do you think this will resolve in the long term? Well, whenever I want to know what we do in future, I just look for cases that already exist and see how we handle those. Like, every student thinks she is a genius. That's a bit ambiguous. It could be that every student thinks one girl is a genius, or every student thinks that they themselves is a genius. It's confusing unless you start out with a named entity. Mary is doing fantastically in her school. In fact, every student thinks she is a genius. So that's how you could resolve that. We could also look at this sentence. John thinks his father has misplaced his glasses, which is at least 6 ways ambiguous if there are 3 possible entities here. But we could do things like say John thinks his own father has misplaced his glasses or his own glasses. So that's one way to do it. And in fact, Russian actually marks a distinction between his and his own. All right. Need to stop. But we will have more for you next week. Thanks to Amelia Roper, Kate McConnell, Yvette, Nolan, Migdalia, Cruz, Ishia, Bennison, and Taylor Bailey. Thanks also to Mark Neal, who's taking us out to lunch. Thanks for listening. And until next time, keep talking.
This has been an RTR-FM podcast. RTR-FM is an independent community radio station that relies on listeners for financial support. You can subscribe online at rtrfm.com.au/subscribe.
Our theme song is by R Trees, and you can check out their music on rtrees.com and everywhere good music is sold.
We're on Twitter at TalkRTR. Send us an email, talkthetalk@rtrfm.com.au. And if you'd like to get lots of extra linguistic goodies, then like us on Facebook or check out our Patreon page. You can always find out whatever we're up to by heading to talkthetalkpodcast.com.